Hello and welcome to episode 6 of Adult Music, the podcast for music for the mature mind. I'm your co-host Russ here with
Mike. This is your co-host Mike. It's episode 6 and we're still here. They said we'd be done by now, but they were wrong.
Yes, the naysayers were wrong. What did they know?
Where do we get up to episode 10?
They didn't know. They didn't know there was so much music to access that we could probably make one every day.
Yeah, and boy, there's a lot coming up. I'm kind of having trouble choosing. I keep saying to myself, okay, I'm going to choose these 3 for next week. But there's time. I mean, I could just keep going really for the next. I've still got 4 or 5 weeks of material to cover in the classical. And alone, and there's a few jazz recordings that I want to talk about too that are coming out. There's just today, Veronica Swift's new album just came out. I'm kind of curious to hear that and like to possibly talk about that in a future episode. I don't know. We'll see. We'll
keep them rolling along.
Hey, guess what I bought this week?
What did you get?
I got the physical. I ordered. I don't have it yet. The physical. Recording of the Metropolitan Opera's Porgy and Bess, the one that won the Grammy for the best opera recording. I said, I had to hear it after that. No other way to hear it. I love the opera. It'd be good to have a new recording of it. So there you go. I'll let you know what I think of it. When I finally get it.
It's getting strange, even looking at some things we're going to talk about this week. And there's some things that are only available on physical media, like that.
Yeah.
And now there's some music that's only available streaming, and you can't buy it on physical media. That
drives me crazy.
I imagine so.
Because if I really like something, I want to have it on my shelf.
Right.
Now, I know you can burn it, but I don't want to do that. I want to have I want to have the printed version of it with the notes, the booklets. I really enjoy. In fact, when we start talking about the classical recordings today, I have all 3 of these in physical form, and the booklet notes are rather useful in kind of understanding the program, especially on the first one we're going to talk about, the Baroque one.
Right.
So what do you think? Should we get into this, or?
Let's get started. Let's begin with the Baroque.
The Baroque era, 1600 to around 1750. That's the beginning of Italian opera, around the year 1600, to the death of Johann Sebastian Bach.
Sad day.
Yeah, sad day. It didn't really become a sad day until 200 years later when his music was rediscovered. Right. At the time, I don't think many people cared, but he was someone who really became. But Bach, by the time he died, he was sort of considered to be old-fashioned and out of style because they were doing there was a new kind of galant style that would eventually become the classical style that Mozart and Haydn would. Right, and so Bach was considered to be old-fashioned, but he was also pretty much the super genius of Western music in the entire history. I mean, he really is kind of number one.
Right.
And it was really Mendelssohn and the Romantics who really set all that in stone. They set a lot of things in stone. We still follow a lot of their sort of prescriptions for the music, the way it should be performed, all these things.
And so what we've got here is sort of this is Baroque, but I believe it's sort of the title refers to a style of not only music, but art and other types of things that were sort of emerged in Italy in the 18th century, right? That's what this title here is.
Settecento is the name of the album, Baroque Instrumental Music from the Italian States. Now, in Italian, Settecento, it really means 1700. They don't say the 18th century for the 1700s. They would just say the 1700s, which makes it easier to understand, to be honest. I don't know why we don't do that in English. Anyway, so the Settecento, this is kind of the late era of Baroque music. So Baroque music had existed for 100 years already. and this is kind of towards the era of Bach and Haydn, okay? But it's in their early years, the early 1700s, right?
And this is...
Bach would have been a kid at this time.
The ensemble is La Serenissima.
La Serenissima.
They are actually a UK-based ensemble.
They are. Yes, they are. Directed by Adrian Chandler. Don't really get more English names than that. They're named after the nickname of the Republic of Venice, often referred to as La Serenissima. And let's see, they were formed to perform the music of Vivaldi specifically, and there was a lot of it coming out at the time. Scholarship in the 1990s and 2000s were unearthing a lot of new Vivaldi. Well, not new, but they newly discovered Vivaldi concertos, and especially operas. Vivaldi, when we were young, Vivaldi wasn't considered to be an opera composer. He was thought of as a violin concerto composer, like the Four Seasons, and that was really the only work anybody knew. And if you were kind of in the know, you knew maybe a few of the other violin concerto sets. But it turns out he was a very good opera composer, apparently too, for the Baroque era. I mean, this is the early opera, and he wrote a lot of operas, which vocalists now sing regularly in their recitals. Okay, they've become part of the new program.
So we didn't have the full scope of his body of work.
Yeah. Well, anyway, they've expanded their horizons, of course, and on this recording, they're recording a lot of Italian composers who you may not have heard of. A few of them are even new to me, but some of them have been recorded before. Now, before we talk about the music, I have my 3 classical choices this week. All have excellent album covers, and I think the album cover, when you can get a good classical album cover, it's sort of it's a good thing, because classical album covers tend to be kind of benign. They usually have like the musician on it, or there'll be some impressionist painting or something like that, something from the era that the music was made in. But here we have it's kind of, I don't know if it's black and white, but it's sort of a muted color or black and white photo of it looks like an Italian street here with a full color Vespa of the type that Audrey Hepburn wrote in Roman Holiday.
That's how I find this album in my list. I just look for the scooter when I go browsing through the album photos. Yeah, it's kind of unique.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's a Vespa. I'm not because they always called them Vespas anyway in Italy, but no. I'm guessing that's what this is. But it's an older one. It's a very attractive cover. And the address, by the way, of the building that it's parked in front of is 1700. So 1700 is very clever.
Well thought out.
I like the album cover a lot. Well thought out. Okay. Now, this recording of Baroque concertos now is not just strings. There's also a solo recorder player, a young German woman named Tabea Debus, and she's excellent. She kind of, the first time I really heard, she really plays in the, I want to say the Italian style, but when I first heard Il Giardino Armonico long ago, they're still recording now. We talked about them a few weeks ago. But back, I think it was in the 90s, they released an album of concertos from Napoli. And Giovanni Antonini plays the recorder and still does. And he had a way of, he had this real presence, this real three-dimensionality to his playing. Like he almost made the sounds like burst out of the instrument, like it was like the instrument couldn't contain the sound anymore, and it just burst out. And Debus does that. She kind of plays in that style, which I think of as an Italian style now, because it's not just melodic. There's a kind of tactility to it, let's say. Okay. Like the sound is kind of being pushed on you. I really love it. It sounds really alive. To me, recorder can be sort of a droll instrument to listen to in some recordings, but this one here really, the whole way that the music is played and articulated is with great rhythm and presence, and the recorder's
sound really matches the way that the string rhythms and the whole mood of the pieces, which is quite energy charged. So I've listened to this before we even decided we would talk about this one. I've already listened to it a few times before that, and I found it a really engaging recording. It's got a lot of really good energy. Their style of playing, you can tell that this is the type of music that they specialize in, and they do it really, really well. And
not only
this
that,
kind of energetic Baroque playing in Italian style is really, really good listen.
It's energetic. It's got fantastic, positive, really kind of life-affirming energy to it, like the playing. But it's not played at the breakneck tempo that I've kind of been complaining about Il Giardino Armonico's recent recordings. It's pretty spacious. You can hear a lot. It just feels serene and good. I love this a lot.
It's not hurried, but it has that, in any style of music, you can impress people with speed, but every piece has the speed that conveys the tempo that really brings out what the rest of the elements should be at their best. And this is, as you say, the tempos are not breakneck here, but the use of the rhythms and the right accents makes every piece feel like it's just locked in to right exactly where it should be. And it feels very satisfying as you go through the different pieces that I think they've really consciously set in where those tempos should be. And it really comes through as very, I don't know how to say it. It's like very solid, I guess, is what I'm saying. Yeah. And,
I was trying to go for that. I was using that word tactility to kind of mean that same thing. Like there's a sort of a third dimension to it. Like it's not sort of in the speaker. It's sort of like, it feels like it's slightly outside of it, like it's just kind of coming towards you, sort of. It's really fantastic. And the recording is fantastic too, very clear. All right, I want to go through these pieces a little bit. We hear the recorder right away, which is a good choice, I think, because she really, Tabea Debus really kind of grabs the attention with her playing. By the way, the first one is Alessandro Scarletti sonata for recorder, 2 violins, and continuo. And I want to mention that if you're listening to this on your streaming, you're going to just get the names of the pieces, but the booklet for the CD actually has where the piece originated too. So this one would be Kingdom of Naples. Scarlatti worked in Naples. This is Alessandro Scarlatti, not his son Domenico, who went to Spain and did all the famous keyboard sonatas that Horowitz and then later all these other harpsichordists and pianists did. Okay, so he's in the Kingdom of Naples. We then move to the Republic of Venice for a piece by Evaristo Felice Dall'Abaco. This one's for violin and continuo. He was a discovery for me. This is going to be an unfamiliar name to most listeners unless you listen to this repertoire often, because he's being recorded by these ensembles quite a bit. This one was for strings. Okay, a nice relaxed pace. Then we stay in the Republic of Venice for a piece by Antonio Vandini, who I knew only as a name before this recording, and I heard this one. Okay, this one's for cello and continuo. Then we have Francesco Mancini, another composer whose name I knew, but not his works. Also worked in Naples. Then we move on to the Papal States. This is really taking us back to the 18th century. Bologna for, let me see if again, this guy has a very long and very beautiful name, Giuseppe Antonio Brescianello. I kind of, if that was a sauce, I'd order it.
Sounds like something to eat. Yes, I was just thinking. Yeah.
Or maybe a wine,
I don't think I had that last time I was in Rome.
Brescianello. It's fantastic. Okay. Back to Venice for Giuseppe Tartini, one of the great violinists of his day. And in fact, this is a sonata for violin and continuo. Let me see. And the last one, we're going to end with the recorder. There are 3 works for recorder. That's the Mancini is also a recorder work. And the last one, La Serenissima, go back to their roots and record a Vivaldi concerto for recorder, 2 violins and continuo. And that ends the disc and the album, and it's highly, highly recommended. Again, I got into the habit of listening to Baroque music first thing in the morning. It really kind of starts my day up, and especially not Italian, but instrumental Baroque music. It's really uplifting. It was this was a time when the Renaissance was well underway and the Enlightenment was starting, and people just thought the world was just going to keep improving, and you can kind of hear that in the music. It just sounds really positive. Okay.
Yeah, this is one of the better Baroque new releases I've heard in recent months, and I like to listen to Baroque early in the morning too. And Baroque music is one of the few kinds of music that I can listen to as background music, just because of the structure and, I don't, in a good predictability of the logic of the music. It's not like romantic or modern music where my concentration will be pulled away from it. However, on this album, just because of the tempos and also the recorder sound and the whole sort of ambiance of the performance, I found myself distracted from what else I was doing and just really focusing on the music here. It's that good. So this one gets a strong recommendation from me too.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody, all listeners, get on it. Listen to it tomorrow.
Get on your scooter
right now.
Get on your Vespa and go find this album. And what was the name again?
It's called Settecento.
No, the guy with the delicious name.
Brascianello.
Order a Brascianello.
A bottle of Brascianello.
And listen to this Settecento.
There is a famous cello player, and I don't know if he's famous, but cellists like him a lot. Mario Brunello, and Brunello also happens to be a kind of wine, so right. I think that's kind of a nice name to have.
Cello and wine, how can you go wrong?
Yeah. Cello, wine. We haven't given out names yet. I mean, I may as well say my name because people are reading my book, incidentally. Thank you very much for those of you who ordered the book.
Don't say it in the audio, so leave it a mystery.
Say it in the audio?
You have to wait till the 10th episode.
Oh, is that right? We're gonna unveil ourselves
Perhaps.
In the 10th episode.
Maybe not. We might lie.
Well, if you want to know my last name, you have to read my book.
You have to leave a comment in the podcast. Yes.
Okay. Well, just call us Russ and Mike for now. That's okay.
That's all. Those could be pseudonyms anyway. So.
It could be. Is there anything else I want to say about this? I don't remember. I think it's okay.
Let's
I loved it.
Cross over into France then.
French Duets. Okay, the next album is on Hyperion Records, which means it's not available on any of your streaming services. Now, all right, let me give you the name first. It's French Duets, and this is a piano four hands recording. Okay, not two pianos. Okay, this is like two guys sitting at a piano and playing with four hands, and they are Paul Lewis and one of my favorite pianists, Stephen Osbourne. Okay, now Osbourne records for the Hyperion label, and Paul Lewis, I guess, is I don't think he's recorded anything for Hyperion, but he's usually on Harmonia Mundi. But these two have recorded an album before. Oh, by the way, I wanted to say, you can, for Hyperion Records, you can get a stream or a FLAC file from their website. Okay, they do everything through their website.
I think Presto sells it as well. And
yeah, you can buy it as a hard copy.
Yeah, and you can listen to the samples on Presto for free too, and then buy it in a variety of quality downloads.
Yeah, we'll give you some sort of. I guess we'll give you the.
I've got the links for both of them ready. They'll be in the description below. Yes.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, French Duets. Now, first of all, it's again another great album cover. This is an impressionist painting on the cover, and I don't recognize it. I think I've seen this. It's a detail from a painting. It's not the
part of a painting.
And I don't know what it is off the top of my head. I'd have to look this up. Oh well, I'll do some research while I'm talking. Anyway, this album features 6 works, 4 of which are for, I don't want to say children, young people, let's say, young competent pianists, okay, to play together. And those works are, and I've played all 4 of these actually. Oh, I'm sorry, 3 of them are for young people, because I've played 4 of them. The first
one for old people, so you could start playing them now?
Well, I'll get to that. Hold on a minute. don't know about old people, but the first one. This starts out with Gabriel Fauré's famous work Dolly for four hands, and this was written, I think, for I don't remember who it was written for. It's for a young girl that he was acquainted with or something like that. They're fairly easy to play, and they're really beautiful. Not only that, but Paul Lewis and Stephen Osbourne, they have paired up before in a Schubert recording that was really fantastic. That was a good 10 or 15 years ago now. So it's nice to hear them together again. And boy, do they play beautifully. It's you really can't tell one from the other. I kind of wish I knew who was playing the lower part and who the higher part, but
I felt like it sounds like one person with four hands, because the dynamics and the tone changes are so synchronized. It's hard to believe that it could be, two people actually, doing it together, because there's sort of nothing that's not completely coordinated when you listen to it.
Yeah, and that's even more remarkable considering that French composers use timbre a lot to convey their musical meaning. Like they write very idiomatically for the instruments. So in order to get that sound like that, it's it's so uniform. It's really amazing. Now, one of the things I love about records like this, when you hear a work like Dolly, it's a 6-movement work, okay, and usually you hear children playing it, and they don't play it well. And if they do play it well, they're not really playing it expressively, okay? They're young, they haven't really gotten all those little nuances in yet. So hearing two adult pianists play these works is just really beautiful. You really feel like you're hearing the work at its best, and I just enjoyed this performance and the others I was familiar with immensely. After that comes... I think
the thing here, too, is, like, especially with this impressionistic style, music doesn't have to be difficult to be wonderful, right? Some of the best music styles, in classical music or other styles of music, are the simplest ones. Of course, we can appreciate complex music for its own interesting aspects, but something that's very simple and could be, as far as what the content is that's written, easy to play. Right. It can be some of the most wonderful music, especially how it's performed and interpreted, and bringing out all the different colors and possibilities inside of it. So I think that when I listened to this recording, it was beautiful in its simplicity, but then considering it's two people completely in sync, performing it together, added just another level to it. So it really sort of transports you into this sort of lovely kind of place when you listen to these melodies with four hands.
Yeah, easy to play shouldn't mean simplistic in content. I know.
No, not at all.
I've been around classical, listeners, and musicians are always really great. They just love to play anything. The people who have studied it, but classical listeners can be pretty snobby, and
really
they'll think of certain things as beneath them.
No.
Which I think is a little crazy.
No.
I just like it. One of the things about, we were talking about the Baroque before. One of the reasons we like to listen to it in the morning is that it's just easy on the ear, and you don't have to do all this work that you would have to do in following a lot of these like really kind of long kind of like, suspensions of chords, and wondering, when it's actually going to change, like you would do in the Romantic era, or
right.
Let's not even get into the
Schoenberg before breakfast would be a bad idea, probably.
Yeah, that would be a bad idea. Yeah. That's definitely late night music that will give you some of it will give you nightmares if you listen to a Survivor from Warsaw, or maybe Pierrot Lunaire too. There's a new recording of that coming out soon too, by the way, which we'll get to maybe in future episodes. All right. After the Fauré comes Francis Poulonk. Sonata for four hands. Now, this was one I hadn't heard before, and it sounds like a pretty tough one to play. It's a little more explosive than or at least the first movement is, and the final two. The middle movement is called Rustique, and it's kind of got this. Well, it's well titled, a rustic kind of feel to it. So this is more for adult players. This one, and I don't see kids playing this. It's also not as like say delightful as the foray. It's a little bit more work to hear, to listen to. But it's not a difficult listen by any means. Next is one of really my favorite works in the four-hand repertoire, not for children, but it's Claude Debussy, Six Epigraphes Antiques. Okay.
Here we are on adult music, reviewing music for young people.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Well, this one isn't for young people. This is Debussy in his ancient Greek mode. The first piece is to invoke Pan, god of the summer wind. And just these wonderful evocative titles he gives his works just kind of really...
He must have had some good absinthe when he was thinking of these, yeah.
I'm sure he did, along with all of his contemporaries in the late 19th and early 20th century. He had a thing for ancient Greece. He wasn't like... He really made it his own style. He had a way of evoking that period as it appeared on, say, these vases or these canisters that had art on. I think he let that inspire him as opposed to actually going to Greece and trying to figure out how these people actually lived. It's more of a fantasy Greece, a fantasy, which is always the best kind, I think. Okay, the next piece. Let's see. The other very evocative title is for a grave without a name. For the third one is for a propitious night. Wink, wink. I think we know what that means. We all want a propitious night. Okay. Next one is for the dancer with crotales. That's like the bells on your feet. Okay. I think that's what those are. I don't remember exactly what crotales is. What we say in English.
I don't know.
It says the French. It says crotales. I don't know. Maybe it's a rattlesnake. I don't know. It says here crotal is a rattlesnake. Oh well.
Some type of
for the rattlesnake dancer. I thought it was like an Indian dancer. The next one is for the Egyptian woman, and the last one is to thank the rain in the morning. To thank the morning rain, and this is another big theme of Debussy's. He has a lot of rain pieces as well. We all know Jardin sous la pluie, maybe the third of the which one is that? The one with Pagodas. Which one is Estampe? The third of those piano pieces. This one's for four hands. Again, really beautifully played, evoking the rain on the piano, and you have two pianists in excellent sync and with an identical timbre. They're very sensitive to the sound. It's fantastic. Next comes another Claude Debussy work, Petite Suite, and this one is for children as well. I played this one as well, with a friend in a boat, and then the other ones are all dances. A cortège, which would be like a kind of funeral march, I guess, or just a slow procession. Minuet and ballet. They were all really very pretty. Next comes the second of the challenging works, Igor Stravinsky, 3 easy pieces. They're not easy in the sense that children are going to play them. They're kind of sophisticated for the ear. But I've never played this, so I couldn't really tell you if they were easy or not. I imagine he wouldn't lie. But
easy compared to the rest of his compositions,
yes.
Maybe.
Well, he's not really a piano composer. He did a few piano works, though, which is kind of interesting. Most of his stuff is for orchestra. And the last one, so beautiful, Ravel's Ma Mère Loire. This is Mother Goose, okay? And he's evoking some stories from Mother Goose. Most people will know this from the ballet. He expanded it into a full ballet and added a few movements for that. But this is the original work for piano 4 hands, and he wrote it for these 2 little girls that he was acquainted with. I think they were the daughters of a friend or something like that, and he wrote it for them to play. The first one is the Pavane for the Sleeping Beauty. Then comes Petit Poucet, which in English we call Tom Thumb, and he gets lost in the woods, and you can kind of hear the very opening piano line. You hear this these sort of upward moving scales, that's keeps starting again, sort of evoking him as a, taking one path and then another and trying to find his way back out of the woods. The next one, La Daronette, Impératrice des Pagodes, Little Ugly One, Empress of the Pagodas. This is one that Ravel made up. This is not actually a real story, but it's got these wonderful like Orientalisms in it. These sort of Chinese sounding scales. I guess they're pentatonic scales in this that evoke this sort of fairy tale world of China that we would imagine as children. Okay, and it's really beautiful. This is actually pretty difficult to play too, because it's up on the black keys of the piano to get that pentatonic sound.
Yeah, didn't hear anything like that when I went to China. I was wondering where.
I think the real China is very different.
I had to go to France in order to hear the fairy tale China pieces. Yeah, but it's a really nice China piece. Too. Yeah.
Yeah, this is for me the centerpiece, and it is the middle one too. The next one is Conversations Between the Beauty and the Beast. I really like this. Is fun to play, especially if you play it. If you're a man and you play it with a woman, the man would play the lower part and the woman the higher part, because the higher part is the beauty. She gets the beautiful melodies, and they're all very well formed, and it kind of sounds like you're talking to an educated or very smart woman. And then when the beast talks, he's in the bass, and there's a lot of it's not terribly articulate. He doesn't really get any melodies. He gets just these little fragments of these motifs sort of that sort of repeat a lot. It kind of reaches a peak at one point. There's a point of crisis, and then it is resolved. Our heroes go off liking each other again. And the last one is also just Le Jardin Féerique, the Enchanted Garden. This one is not a fairy tale. It's just an evocation of that fairy tale child's world. Okay. And Ravel has this magical way with harmony and just with timbre of just, he kind of, around his melodies, he almost kind of creates this almost St. Elmo's fire around his melodies. It really feels magical. And he does this in a lot of works, not just here. Really evocative of that childhood world. It's almost like it's kind of protected by the harmony. It's just fantastic. I love this piece so much. They play it absolutely beautiful. This is probably the best recording of this or best performance of this I've ever heard. Highly recommended again from me. French Duets, Paul Lewis and Stephen Osbourne are the pianists. Check it out. Okay.
Yeah, I enjoyed this one. I listened to it a few times. If you put it on without knowing that it was, two different people, you won't notice it right away, and then you'd be impressed and drawn in with the impressionist moods and the lovely performances of all these pieces. So, double thumbs up for this one.
Yeah, it's a fairly quiet album, I should mention too. Also good for the morning, I would say. Or for late, late at night maybe. It might be a little too cheerful for late at night, but it's got a few loud points, but it's fairly quiet. Okay, now for my last album, I was thinking of Russ here because Dr. Mike has given Russ given Russ here his musical examination sort of his musical mind, and I have concluded that he is deficient in vitamin soprano.
Yes.
Do you think?
Could be. But it could be because that, the soprano voice really pushes that button on my head that sometimes puts me in a bad mood. But this will be my least favorite of the picks here.
Well, mine too, but I still liked it.
Okay.
But there are gonna be more sopranos coming up in the future. That's why I kind of set that up that way. Because there are a lot of recordings coming out right now with these younger sopranos that are doing these fantastic recitals. This one This is And Love Said, okay, is the name of the recital. Jodie Devos is the soprano, and Nicolas Krüger is her accompanist on the piano. And he's got a pretty big role to play, too. Now, Jodie Devos is a Belgian soprano, and this is, I think, is her second album, or at least the second one I've heard. The first one was music of Offenbach, and it came out about 2 years ago. It was called Coloratura. And it made a big splash. It was a pretty amazing record, full of this, like just this nonstop aerosol spray of coloratura singing. Oh, no. It really was a high wire act for the whole album. In fact, it's kind of hard to listen to all the way through because it's kind of samey. But at the same time, you hear some of these vocal pyrotechnics that she's capable of on that album, and you just want to hear the next piece to hear her do it again. I kind of felt like a little kid when I heard that. Oh, let me hear it again, do it again, you know? Now, on this one, she kind of takes a step back. She wants to, she's sort of filling in her musical personality here. Now, Jodie Devos is a Belgian soprano, but she studied in London, I think at the Royal Academy of Music. I hope I got this right. I don't have notes in front of me when I say this. But as a result, she studied English song. Now, English song isn't really performed much by non-native English-speaking singers. English songs they're kind of funny. They're full of nuances that are very particular to Britain. Even American singers have trouble with some of them, despite American singers being native speakers as well. They're very idiomatic to the English, and so it's kind of nice to hear this recording. The first work is by Frank Bridge, who was Benjamin Britten's teacher. Come to Me in My Dreams and Love When A-Riding. It's two works that I hadn't heard before. A nice way to start off. Then she goes to Irene Poldovsky, which is a nom de plume. It's not this woman's real name. She was Irene Poldovsky was I think the very famous violinist Wieniawski, the virtuoso violinist's daughter, and she was a bit of a composer herself. Here is her song "To Love." I should get the booklet out here because the CD case isn't listing these in the order they're performed. Okay. So she sings Reeds of Innocence there. We go to Rafe Vaughan Williams. Sorry, his name is spelled Ralph but pronounced Rafe. I haven't figured that out yet. Okay, from Songs of Travel, Let Beauty Awake. All right, this song, I talked about Ravel having like this almost like St. Elmo's Fire like around his melodies, and Vaughan Williams had studied with Ravel, and this was one of the results of that period of study, and you can really hear the Ravel influence. I often wonder how Ravel does that. He just passes on this real magic that he has to his students. This is a fantastic song, Let Beauty Awake, and it's usually sung by a tenor, so it's nice to hear it sung by a soprano here. Now, I want to mention, up until this point, well, actually, and further on, next comes Roger Quilter, a very famous kind of composer of art songs. He's one of the more famous in that category in England. His song Love's Philosophy is performed there, and then she does the first set of songs, 5 Elizabethan songs by Ivor. I hope I said that right. Ivor Gurney, all from the early Renaissance period. Most of them, the texts are from Shakespeare. Now, okay, so the last of these is a song called Spring. And this is the same lyric that is used in Benjamin Britten's Spring Symphony. He had set this in his Spring Symphony. There's a big difference. Like the Britten has so much more presence than this. It's good. In the booklet notes, DeVos mentions that she sang this as part of her, I don't remember, graduation recital, or it was at some special performance, and that she really took to it. I want to mention so far, these first 10 tracks, she sounds... I don't want to say idiomatic. I'll say fairly idiomatic. She's not quite in it, but she performs these songs exceptionally well, I think, especially for someone who's not English. There are a few kind of vowels that aren't quite accurate, but I mean, you'd have to be listening closely to hear that because, it's, like we would do, because normally you'd just be listening to the tone of the voice. Now, the thing about this so far is coming off the Offenbach recording, where there was all this coloratura all over the place. These are really more in a middle soprano register. There aren't any real high notes in here. So you're really listening to her artistry a bit more. And I think I really wanted the excitement. Okay. And I wasn't really getting that here. This is a really more low key performance, but none the worse for that. It's very good. There's another Poldowski piece after that called To Love. And I really loved, this is where, the pianist here on this recording, Nicolas Krüger, really comes to the fore. Cause I love the way he caresses the arpeggios out of the piano. It's just a really beautiful sound for Ms. Devos to sing over. He does that a bit on this record. Okay, now for me, the recital turns on the next set of works. Benjamin Britten, On This Island. Now Devos says she learned these works when she was a student. And she seems to have really taken these to heart because these are fantastic performances. This is a set of works I didn't know before. This is the first time I had heard it. She characterizes exceptionally well. The accompaniment is, of course, really great. And, this recital really suddenly, for me, comes to life here and continues. Okay. Next, we have Darius Milhaud, French composer, writing an English song. Okay, Love My Heart Longs Day and Night, from his Opus 30, 2 love songs. After that, she gets a young contemporary Belgian composer, Patrick Leterme, born in 1981. That would make him about 40 this year. Okay, so he's a young guy. 2 poems by Oscar Wilde. Okay, now here's where we get the vocal pyrotechnist that we've been missing on this album. He really wrote this for this huge range that Devos seems to be able to cover, and she's really fantastic in the upper range. I really like hearing her there. Okay, especially at her current stage of singing ability. So the works themselves are pretty good. They're hard. They sound really hard to sing, but that might be worth hearing for everybody. Then she kind of adds another Milhaud, the other love song from Milhaud's 2 love songs, Opus 30, Peace My Heart. Okay, after that we have 3 works from William Walton, from Facade, a musical theater piece that he wrote music to. There's a song an English song with a Portuguese title by Germaine Taillefer, whose music we don't hear enough of. This is a French woman composer. She was part of the group of Les Six, and she's the one you never hear about. And it's really too bad because she's very good. And then the last work on this is a little surprise, a little Bon Bon by Freddie Mercury of Queen. Okay, this is the Queen song, You Take My Breath Away, written by Freddie Mercury. And it's on the album A Day at the Races for Queen fans. She got inspired to do this because she had seen a video on YouTube of Freddie Mercury at the piano singing it by himself without the band. And it's good. I think classical audiences tend to love this sort of thing because we grew up with this music, and it's always nice to have the popular music of our youth acknowledged, I guess, in classical music. So I thought this was an enjoyable recital all around. I thought it was a little low key. I think it's great that the singer did this album. It's a pretty bold program, especially for a non-English soprano. But I think at her young age, I actually don't know how old she is, but at her young age, her youthful voice, I think we want to hear her more in, do the pyrotechnic stuff while she can, because that Offenbach recording was really fantastic. What do you think?
Yeah, I just I don't really enjoy this kind of material that much. Mm-hmm. The English song kind of thing, and although for a soprano, I did enjoy the quality of her voice. It was very clear and strong, and her vibrato is kind of interesting. It's not excessive at all compared to other soprano voices. So I feel that the quality of her voice is really great.
She's pretty exciting when she gets into the higher registers.
But at the same time, for me, soprano is much in the way that violin in the strings is. I have a limited ability to hear a series of pieces with it, and I can listen, for example, to cello much longer because the range of
it goes
of the
into
tones.
the male range too.
Yeah, and so this one for me, I could appreciate the artistry of it, but it's not really my thing for the material. I thought the Freddie Mercury piece was an interesting ending to it. I'd be open to listening to her on some other kind of material too. But
you should hear the Offenbach album, and so should listeners. Actually, it's really fantastic.
So an excellent singer, just not my sort of vein of material that I can be that excited about or say much about, really.
Yeah, this is what, before we leave this, the album cover, again, is also another striking one. It's Ms. Devos on the cover wearing a yellow, I guess, turtleneck, I guess that is. And she's pulling on the, it's this canary yellow turtleneck, and she's kind of mischievously looking at the camera and mischievously smiling as she pulls the neck wider. Anyway, kind of... Yeah,
it's not very...
With a black background.
It's not pretentious or serious in any way, so it's kind of fun. And
the Offenbach album cover was similar. She was kind of... It was a very big close-up of her. I should mention, she was born in 1988, so that makes her in her 30s still. She's very young.
A youngster.
Really right at the beginning of her career, so that's a powerful voice. And I want to hear more. I want to hear more of that power in future recordings. This one was very good, though. I think it's going to be for fans of this kind of music and fans of her only. Okay, but I do like the voice a lot. Okay, onwards to jazz.
Okay, this one we had to talk about because we both knew it was coming up, and
we both like this person too.
Yeah, but I like him a lot more after this one, even. I mean, as far as saxophone players, there's plenty to choose from different time periods and eras, but this is a really great album, and what we're talking about is the new release Tone Poem on Blue Note Records by Charles Lloyd and the Marvels, and I believe this is the third release of this grouping. Charles Lloyd, I think, also has another new release just under his own name. But with this band, The Marvels, this is the third release. And this one, I'm not sure about the first one, I remember, but the last album had vocals on it as well. And this one has no vocals, and it's better without any vocals because this is...
Yeah, the last one had Lucinda Williams on it, in fact, so she was kind of an extra element in that whole
and
thing.
It was okay, but actually I enjoyed this one much more. Here,
we tend to like instrumental music more than vocal music, but I want to get some vocal music in there too.
Yeah, but what we've got here, when you've got Bill Frisell on guitar, he's sort of always, to me, whatever he plays on, he sets the total sort of ambiance and mood just because his sound is so unique and encompassing that he sort of creates the landscape of any recording. And so you've got Bill Frisell, but not only that, you've also got pedal steel guitar layered on top of that with, who is it? It's Greg Leese. And then we've got bass, Reuben Rogers, drums, Eric Harland, and then we've got Charles Lloyd on sax and flute, and the flute playing here is really lovely as well. And the material is quite interesting. We've got some Lloyd originals, but also an interesting mixture of pieces in the jazz vein, Ornette Coleman, Thelonious Monk, but also Leonard Cohen, and a couple other covers of compositions. So it's really interesting to me that the source material is really wide and varied, but he brings this sort of, I think he even refers to it as Americana kind of sound to it. And so it evokes sort of country music and blues and rhythm and blues in various places, and especially with what the guitars are doing. But there's lots of space in all of the recordings. And the other thing that was interesting to me was the tracks were recorded over several years' time.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, but you will never know it because the sound is very cohesive and it has good unity going through all of the tracks. There's nothing disjointed about it at all. And it really draws you in with the space that's in there and the amazing tone work, which Bill Frisell always has. But when you put in the interesting effect of the pedal steel guitar sound, and then also the excellent flute work, I think this is this is definitely my favorite of the three, with his recording with this group, the Marvels. And it's just an excellent recording. I keep listening to it over and over again.
I think of the Marvels, by the way, as being like Bill Frisell's like vehicle, although they only ever play with Charles Lloyd, and he gets kind of billing, but he does sound like he's outside the group somehow. And I'll talk about that in a minute.
I think it's maybe, I think he picks very well sort of, how can I say, the environment to put some new music into. So this must be something that he thought about as a setting and the right players for that, what he wanted to create very well. And it's definitely a very unique sound. And, especially when you start out with something, the first two tracks are the Ornette Coleman pieces. And, you start out with that, and then you can still transition to, something by Leonard Cohen. It's very... to take a variety of material and then weave your own theme that makes sense of all of it through there is pretty impressive, I think. And, especially at his age, to keep being this creative, it's really amazing.
Yeah, Charles Lloyd, I think he just turned 80 last year. Right. This is his 81st year now. Bill Frisell's influence also is in the choice of tracks you can hear, because you mentioned Leonard Cohen. He'll often take a lot of popular music songs from the 60s, 70s, and film songs, and do his own sort of version of it. And now he's got Charles Lloyd playing over. It's a pretty interesting combination. The way this album sounded to me was I feel like I had mentioned that the Marvels were kind of like Bill Frisell's vehicle. He seems to really set the tone and kind of lay down these kind of sort of, what did you say, folky or sort of Americana vibes. Yes. I think of the we just heard the record he did with
his recent Americana recording
with Grégoire Marais on the harmonica called Americana. So he really brings
some of that same atmosphere is also here, which with the addition of Charles Lloyd is quite interesting.
Now, here's the thing: what the Marvels play on this record, this is the impression I got, was very kind of solid, down to earth, and earthy. Whereas Charles Lloyd is really his playing on this record, and it's very consistent throughout. That's why I was surprised that all these tracks were recorded at different times, because the approach is consistent in every track. Lloyd plays in a more abstract style on this record than anyone else. I mean, he really goes off into these sort of almost flights of improvisation or runs, and it just sounds completely like against what the band is playing. It almost kind of sounds like they're sort of like this scaffold off of which he jumps off to, like fly. That was the impression I got. It felt very free to me.
Right, that's what I was saying. They sort of provide the canvas for his sort of abstract paintings, and I feel like which is interesting. I mean, he has a different personality on sax and flute. I find his flute playing is much more sort of melodic focused and sort of less avant-garde, but his sax playing is more out there, and he's taking more chances and trying different things on sax. So I like the contrast of the tracks and the difference between the flute and the sax, the expressions between those two. I
love jazz flute. He'll often pull out the flute, and this one I think it's on Lady Gabor. He plays the flute. I really like that sound.
Yeah, he's got a really nice flute tone.
Yeah.
Well, he was one of the people in the 60s who, before the word world music was overused, he was already doing music that had influence from lots of different cultures and sounds, as with Yusef Lateef, another great flute player. That he's still able to kind of get these new, interesting sounds and contexts at that age and still sound really fresh. It's great. And like I said, this one of the three recordings with this particular ensemble, this one's my favorite one. So.
Yeah, I liked the first one a lot too. It had a Bob Dylan song at the beginning, I remember. This is probably my favorite one too. It also ends with a work about the spirit. This is a big thing with Charles Lloyd, and I'm sure this was his influence because he likes to commune with the divine musically if he can. And the last work is called Prayer.
Yes,
it's a little more somber than the rest, but he gets his prayer, his acknowledgement of divine into this album as well. Always makes me happy to hear that he's going that way, especially since he's moving towards he's really an elder statesman of jazz now.
Yeah. So this is a strong one. I haven't I'll be checking out his other I don't know who plays on it, but the non-Marvels release soon too, so maybe we could talk about that.
Is there another new one?
Yes, there is.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I just noticed it, but I haven't had time to check it out. So,
who knew?
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm doing this podcast so I can learn all these great things.
There you go. We'll see if that's worthy of further discussion. And the next thing that popped on my radar as a new release is another vocal recording by the singer Jane Monheit, and it's called Come What May. It's on the Club 44 Records label. And Jane Monheit was a singer who I first heard in the early 2000s. As a matter of fact, I remember when I first heard her, it was on Terence Blanchard's maybe 2002 or 2003 album, Let's Get Lost, and it was a tribute to the songwriter Jimmy McHugh, who wrote a lot of songs that everyone knows, but not a lot of people know his name. And he had some guest vocalists on there, including Cassandra Wilson and a number of others. And Jane Monheit sang the Jimmy McHugh tune "Too Young to Go Steady," which is kind of a jazz standard. But if you're too old and you sing "Too Young to Go Steady," it's hard to get any sort of believability in the lyrics to that song. I'm not sure if it comes from a musical or something, although I knew the tune. But I was at that time really struck with Jane Monheit's the purity of the tone of her voice and the sort of innocence to it. And I sort of made a note. Oh, this is an interesting singer. And right around the same time, I also heard her on another one of my favorite trumpeters, Tom Harrell's recordings. And so I could see that she was going to get some attention as a singer. And after that, she did record a number of albums on her own and got quite a following and a successful career. And she's a singer who's heavily influenced by Ella Fitzgerald. She has a really good sense of swing and interesting pitch control, as well as that pure tone. And also she seems to have an affinity for bossa nova and Portuguese sort of songs. And I had to listen to some of her other releases, and most of them sort of focus very much on the jazz standard and American songbook. And then haven't heard anything from her in a number of years. So this is her first release since 2016. So the first in 5 years. So I thought I would check it out. And I can say that it's okay. That's about all that's all I can say from it. There's a few things, without being too critical. She's still, there's nothing really new here. So if an artist takes a few years off and comes back, I'm looking for, is this next release going to express some new direction or some different exploration, something new in their delivery? And I don't really find anything here. She's back at the standards, American songbook, although in here there's one that we don't hear too often. That's Harold Arlen and Ira Gershwin's The Man That Got Away. And I knew the title, but I actually didn't know this tune because it's not performed that often. So maybe that's the only thing here that's a little bit out of the usual. But, we've got The Nearness of You, On the Sunny Side of the Street, which is also, I believe, a Jimmy McHugh tune, Lush Life. And then we've got her, as she's done previously, sort of bossa nova, Samba do Avial Hobim tune. And it's okay, but as I said, I didn't really find anything new here. Also, I think as she's aged, her voice is changing a little bit, but I don't find her delivery as effortless as it used to be. And that's not a big criticism, because she does have a unique voice, but I don't think she's taken it anywhere new to sort of take advantage or adjust to her voice as she's moving on. So I just see this sort of as a treading water release from my viewpoint, although I see it's gotten a lot of positive reviews elsewhere. I'd probably be more likely to listen to some of her previous recordings than this new release.
Okay, I didn't hear any of her previous recordings, so I only have this to go on. And I thought it was a pretty classy record. I mean, if you have a romantic night with your honey, you might want to put this on in the background. It might help the atmosphere. I liked her a lot better with the instrumentalist. Some of the tracks have strings on them.
Yeah, there's a couple big arrangements on them.
Yeah, I'm not too crazy about string arrangements in jazz. It really depends how they're done. But here, I thought they were a bit schmaltzy.
It gets really a bit overdone and schmaltzy. I felt the same way, and I was glad that it was only on a couple of tracks.
Yeah, because it was actually good on the other tracks. Now, you had mentioned Ella Fitzgerald as an influence. I had read that too, but when I was listening to this, because I listened to it without reading anything about her the first time, and I thought, the singer that she made me think of was Barbra Streisand. There was kind of like a theater, approach to this, like in Barbra Streisand in the theater, let's say,
right?
Especially on the tracks, "The Man That Got Away" and "My Funny Valentine." I was thinking, Barbra Streisand approach. She has this way, and I think Barbra Streisand does this too, of making the note sort of that she's singing like open, like it feels like a flower that's closed and it just sort of
she can
blooms,
push it
like,
and the tone just opens up. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and I don't know how I feel about that. It's nice, but I think I may have heard too many singers do it now. It's kind of I guess it ties in with nature or something. Okay. Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was it was a good listen. It was quiet. I think it was pretty calm. Maybe an evening listen, I think, or again, like a romantic evening, I would say.
She doesn't have, she has still has that purity to her voice, and she takes some interesting chances with inflection and pitches, and always brings it, into control. So, I mean, this is her, what she struck upon as her sort of format that has garnered her a lot of fans. And that's great that she has, her sort of niche. I'd really like to hear her doing something a little different. I'd like to hear an album out of the pocket of these standards with some new compositions or something, just to see how she would interpret them and try something different. Maybe that'll come up. I think she got married and had some children. I think that here...
I was just going to ask that. Why did she...
It's a drummer who's her husband or something. So, life event and then coming back. So fair enough. But she's still reasonably young. And so maybe she do something that will surprise me in the future. But, as a singer who's been on my radar for almost 20 years now, I'll keep paying attention a little bit, because there's not a lot of jazz singers out there that get much attention, and the ones that I like don't seem to record very often, like Diane Reeves. Still waiting for something new from her, and so I thought I'd go for a little new vocal listen, which brings me to the deep dive of the episode, and it's a nice dive indeed to clutch a pearl from the bottom when you go down there, which is an album called Brotherhood on a label called Jazz and People. Nice name. And
Jazz and People.
By the Belmondo Quintet. And so here we're going back to France for a group of French musicians. And the Belmondo Quintet is made up of the French brothers Stéphane Belmondo and his brother Lionel. So Stéphane is the trumpet player. Lionel is tenor sax, soprano sax, and flute. And Stéphane is the more famous of the performers here. Among others, he's played with Jackie Terrasson, Milton Nascimento, Youssef Latif, the French jazz guitarist Sylvain Luc, and also the arranger Gil Evans. So he has quite a reputation in France, and has also done some recording in the U.S. with international top-notch musicians. And the rest of the ensemble here, we have Eric Legnini, piano, Sylvain Romano, bass, Tony Rabisson on drums. And this is a really nice recording. I enjoyed this one a lot. It's very much post-bop, in also reaching into more modern type of sounds. A lot of slow tempo tunes, ballads, but also sort of very relaxed sort of vibe, and a mature, measured approach to solos and playing that really creates a nice cohesiveness to the tunes. And it's all original material, and the tunes sort of give nods to famous musicians. The first track, Wayne's Words, I'm imagining could be to Wayne Shorter. Two is more obvious, Youssef's Tree, which is a very lovely ballad in the ballad style of Youssef Latif. We've got a tune, Woody and Us, which includes a lot of very interesting intervals in the melody line, and seems to be an ode to Woody Shaw, who used fourths and other interesting intervals. Then we've got a track called Letters to Evans, which I'm assuming is maybe Gil Evans, because he actually, Stefan had played in Gil Evans' ensemble, although it could possibly be Bill Evans, I'm not sure. And also there's another lovely ballad that's called Song for Dad, which just has some really, really nice flugelhorn playing on it. And so this is a really nice set of post-bop and modern playing with restrained and very mature solos. And to me, this is just an example of how well the Europeans have taken the American jazz idiom and absorbed the important parts of it, and are able to perform it to the highest standard, but also add their own unique voice to it. And I can't really recommend this one as enough. It'll probably go mainly unnoticed, especially on this obscure label, but it is available on all the streaming platforms, and anyone who likes modern jazz and post-bop music that will enjoy this one immensely, I believe.
Yeah, this album, also another great album cover, shows one of the brothers blowing a trumpet into another's ear.
Yeah, it's a really nice album cover. It's interesting.
It's a nice cover, and he seems to be enjoying having that note blown into his ear too. He's kind of got this kind of serene expression on his face, from what I can see here. The album is called Brotherhood, by the way, is what I have here. Okay,
yes.
I was worried for a minute there. I didn't have this in the right record. I liked all of this too. It was a pretty chilled out record though, so it was more of an
it's
instrumentalist.
Very restrained. Yeah,
it's restrained, and it's I think it's more of a real like jazz fans, and especially if you're a jazz musician, you'd probably enjoy this a lot. It kind of if you know kind of what like for example in Wayne's Words, or like this track Letter to Evans, if you kind of know what they're aiming for as far as like their tribute to these great jazz musicians, it's a little more fun. Woody and Us too, things like that. I enjoyed this.
What I like about this one thing in jazz playing is that you're going to have either a live performance or a recording with numerous solos spread out over some material. And so you always want to hold something back, in your solos. You don't want to play everything or all that you're capable of in an improvised solo when you're playing. So, restraint is a virtue that takes sort of maturity to learn. Because you have the chops, you want to show them off. And oftentimes we get these, players who are recognized by critics when they're young, and they're sort of we're deep into the adult music thing here, so I'll use this phrase. They sort of blow their load on every single solo, and the end effect of that is rather tiring after you've heard it once or twice. It gets attention, but then there's nowhere left to go. So restraint is one of the marks of a more mature player. And here I felt like with every track I was sort of treated to something a little bit different or new, and that the solos were matching the mood and this sort of shape of the composition, rather than sort of trying to show off some dexterity or individual sort of expression too much. And so the theme of the album really continues well, and it leaves a lot sort of depth to discover in it. Yeah, so I was really happy to find this, because I have heard of the trumpet player Stefan's name maybe heard him on another recording, but I hadn't listened to anything all the way through of this group or his work. And so yeah, it's there's lots of music like this that's being made around the world in the jazz idiom now, and I'm happy that with streaming and looking through lots of things, I can find it now. And this one is a really recommendable release for anyone who likes modern jazz.
All right. I have nothing to add to that. Fantastic. Anyway, it was a very happy week this week with all this fantastic music. We got really 6 winners, or at least 4 winners and 2 that were
so nothing
good to
nothing
very
bad
good.
Here.
Nothing was bad.
As compared to our previous Grammy discussions, we're picking music that somebody else picked, and we would discuss. Here.
I don't mind doing that. And in fact, if any listeners out there want to contact us and let us know what you want, if you want us to let you know what we think of a certain album that was released in the last 4 months, please. Let us know. We'll do it.
No guarantees. We might take a look at it.
It depends what it is, but
and so it's nice to. I like to pick either something that we noticed, like this album was obscure. I had no idea about it, but I ended up loving it, or something that I saw was released, like the Monheit, and I said, "Oh, well, I want to see what that's about because I haven't heard this name in a few years." So
that's pretty much how I approach music too. A lot of things.
Something completely. It's nice to have a mix of semi-familiar and completely unknown. And then I like to be surprised, reaffirmed. I don't like to be disappointed, but that happens sometimes. But here, I think this is a nice mix of different things. And I think we'd be aiming for this kind of variety of material in terms of genre, and then also expectations. Keeps it kind of interesting, keeps me on my toes. And I enjoy having something unknown to listen to, and something semi-familiar, and then something that I just know is going to be really good. All those things can be inspiring to.
I'm just glad the Grammys are over. That was
Thank you. And
we didn't still listening to the Christopher Theophanides record and the Christopher Rouse one as well. All those Christophers those were
we didn't even
good.
Touch on the debacle of the pop categories.
Oh man! So, let's not go there.
No, although it is supposed to.
I am out of touch.
It is supposed to rain and be wet tonight. But I'd
here in Japan.
I'd much prefer Debussy's take on a wet evening, if you know what I mean. Anyway, that won't be Song of the Year. So
maybe he can also have his piece that evokes a propitious evening and a propitious night.
Yes, is that a WAP?
WAP?
Yes.
I guess so. Did that win an award at the Grammys?
I think that one was Song of the Year or something. I don't know. I don't know.
No, that wasn't Song of the Year. I think I would have noticed that.
I don't know. I didn't look at those categories.
That's where we are.
That's where we are in the cultural demise. But in the downfall of culture, we can still navigate and surf to find the better releases for our mental health and artistry. And that's what we'll strive to do.
Speaking of better releases, by the way, we've got another, you can prepare yourself, another soprano one coming up next week. I know this for a fact because this was a singer that really wowed me on a previous recording. I'll tell you who it is next week. And she's got a record out. And this is a classical record. And I definitely want to have a listen to this and talk about it. So we'll probably do that next week, as well as other stuff. So a little tease there.
I have a jazz saxophone one that I'm looking forward to. I've only heard one teaser track from, but I think that might be 2 weeks because I don't think it's going to come out until the beginning of April. But there's lots of things to look forward to. And Yeah, I think we're going to have plenty of good music to inspire us into the spring months.
One more thing about the classical music world. So far, we haven't talked about musical anniversaries this year. There are several. Like last year was Beethoven.
We had Debussy before that.
But this year there's Josquin des Près, the Renaissance composer of church music. There's Camille Saint-Saëns, French late 19th century, early 20th century composer. And there's Astor Piazzolla, and the Argentinian composer of not just tango music, tango and beyond, really. Yeah. And there's some good stuff by them too that's coming up soon.
Yeah, Piazzolla
maybe
would
in 2
be
weeks
one to
or
look
so.
at. Yeah, I've enjoyed lots of interpretations of his music.
There might be. There was somebody. Oh, you know what else? You know who else has an anniversary? This is a really interesting anniversary. The author Marcel Proust. He was born in, I think, 1870 and died in 1921. So it's the 150th anniversary of his, or was the opposite? It was 18. He was born in 1871 and died in 1922 or something like that. But this year I think is the 150th anniversary of his birth, and next year is going to be the 100th anniversary of his death. So it's sort of a 2-year feast. Now, the reason that's important musically is that Proust held several salons, musical salons. He loved music, and music gets mentioned quite often in Search of Lost Time, his mammoth 3,000-page life work. And there have been two recordings so far this year in classical music about that program music from those salons in honor of the Proust anniversary. We're going to have to get to that eventually too. We've already got too much stuff, so this is going to go on for weeks now, which is fine with us.
There's no lack of inspirational material.
There is not. Okay, wow. So far 2021 musically is looking music for adults is looking good.
Potential, yes, in the classical side, the jazz side, and I'm sure we may take some ventures into other genres that are
we're waiting for something intriguing to show up. I think I haven't seen anything yet
to draw us over the line of genres. Yeah. All right. Well, much to look forward to, and areas to expand into. So thanks again for listening to the Adult Music Podcast, your podcast for music for the mature mind. And we'll see you again next time with some more selections soon.